Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we've got another mock draft for y'all. It is 3.0 time. It's been a bit since we've done one. I wanted to do one last week and the week before that, but I didn't think I was fully into what I wanted with scouting these players. We've gotten to where we need to now, so obviously we've got 3.0 coming up. So a lot has changed since the last time we did one of these. The Patriots' number one pick, looking like there's going to be a non-quarterback first overall, unless Patriots trade back, which I don't know. There could be a situation where they do, but I feel like losing out on a guy that they're going to take first is kind of risky for the New England. But we'll hop right into it anyways. We're going with the first overall pick. He's the best athlete in this draft. He's an absolute stud of a player, Heisman Trophy winner. Travis Hunter is a generational athlete, and he's the guy that you can line him up at corner, you can line him up at receiver, and I do think he'll probably stick more to corner. He's the one of the best corners in the country. He's also one of the best wide receivers in the country. But I think he should stick at corner in the NFL if he has to choose fully one side or the other. And then wide receiver, he can also play as well. I do think a duo of him and Christian Gonzalez would be absolutely beneficial for this Patriots team. And then once again, he can come play wide receiver a little bit for Drake May. They do need protection for Drake May, I will say. That guard and tackle position are bad. I think maybe with the upcoming free agency, you look towards a couple of guys to maybe see if there's some guys that you can get for him. Also, guys like T. Higgins for the Bengals, who I do know just came out and said some stuff about his future. So we'll get to that when we talk about the Bengals. But I don't think there's any other choice other than Travis Hunter, maybe Tyrell McMillan, but I don't think he's a first overall. I think he's a guy you trade back and then draft later. Maybe trade back with New York, let New York get Shedeur Sanders, and then at 4 you draft Tyrell McMillan. But I don't think he's the guy that you say we don't want to risk losing out on because of a guy like Travis Hunter. So we're going to go Travis Hunter number 1. Now number 2 to the Titans. I think this is also a really easy one. The next 3 teams on the board all need a quarterback. When your guy you drafted in the second round 2 years ago is getting benched for Mason Rudolph, that's when you need to say, hey, we need a quarterback, man. This team is desperate for a QB, and that QB is going to be Shedeur Sanders, who I think still is the number 1 quarterback in this class. It's more of a question of, do you take a guy who's a little bit more polished, or you take a guy that's more of a upside guy? He's got bigger upside in Cam Ward. I don't know if these guys are both going to be like Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I don't think they're going to be that type of player. I think they got the potential to be pretty good starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, for them to be, as I said, Hall of Fame players, I don't know if they'll do that. But I think with a guy like Shedeur, who's extremely accurate for a quarterback, he holds onto the ball a little too long. That's him and Cam Ward's problem. But if you go for the guy that has more accuracy, who can also make those plays, over a guy like Cam Ward, who I think could have potential to be a really good quarterback in the NFL. You kind of just take Shedeur because you already know that he's a little bit more polished than Cam Ward is, and you don't want to take that risk on not that upside not happening. So Shedeur Sanders 2. And then we're going to go with number 3. We're going to go right back to quarterback. Cleveland needs to fix that quarterback situation. As much as I love Jameis Winston, him throwing the ball 50 times a game, he can sling the ball, but he throws a couple interceptions every game. That's not something that's good. You have Deshaun Watson, who's getting paid a lot of money, and he hasn't been good. You have Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who really doesn't do anything for the Cleveland offense. Last year they relied so heavily on the run game, and that's why they made the playoffs other than their defense. But I think the quarterback situation there needs to be solved, man. It needs to be solved. It's been a problem for how many years? They thought they had their guy in Baker when they made the divisional round, almost beating the Chiefs that year, actually, in the divisional round. But then, obviously, they got rid of Baker. So I bet you they wish they could take that back. But this is where you get your quarterback situation figured out. As I said, not a deep quarterback class. I think these two quarterbacks are the only two guys that should be taken in the first round. We do tend to see some teams sometimes maybe go into towards the end of the first round and pick a guy that might be a day 2 type of pick and, get him on the squad for that quarterback needing team, like maybe a Jets or a Raiders, or one of those teams. But I don't see that really occurring this draft because, the ReliaQuest Bowl just ended. Milroe looked terrible, in my opinion. He looks really bad. And I think Gabriel is probably a guy that could jump into the day 2s with the way that he's been performing at Oregon. And obviously, if they win the national title, I think he jumps up a little more. Maybe Will Howard could jump up more, but I don't think Will Howard's worth even a round 2 pick at the moment. So no more quarterbacks for me. I'll tell you all that right now. Shitter, Cam Ward. As I said with Cam Ward, he's got a lot of upside. He turns the ball. He does kind of do too much. He fumbles a lot. And in those situations where he tries to play too much hero ball, things can go wrong. And we've seen that a lot with Caleb Williams this year. Caleb obviously has had like the worst offensive line, second most times being sacked by as a rookie. But sometimes those sacks, you can kind of say it was Caleb's fault because he's trying to hold on to the ball too long. But I think Cam Ward's kind of has that problem sometimes. You saw it at against Georgia Tech when they lost that game. So yeah, but Cam Ward's the Cleveland Browns pick at number 3, which leaves the Giants at number 4, questioning what do they do now. We can't get ourselves our quarterback that we want to get. So I think you go and get Will Johnson. Will Johnson's an absolute lockdown corner. I personally think he reminds me of Denzel Ward. And look at Denzel Ward now. He's fantastic. You've got a great corner in Drew Phillips right now, who you just drafted. He's a rookie. And then you've also, who has not been doing well, your current CB1, Deonte Banks, who you drafted 2 years ago in the first round. Hasn't been great. I don't think he's a CB1. And, a guy like Will Johnson on this Giants team would be great for not only the Giants, but it'd be great for Deonte Banks. I don't think Deonte Banks should be lining up against wide receiver 1s every game. Him lining up against wide receiver 2s every game or lining up to coverages every game would be a lot better for him development-wise. And then obviously Will Johnson, I think, has the potential to be lining up against anyone. So I think him at 4, taking a cornerback that high up, true corner, him and Travis Hunter are both fantastic corners. I think Will Johnson is just maybe a little bit better than Travis Hunter at the corner position, but having a guy like him, just absolutely locks up a side of the field. So, you don't get your quarterback of the future, but you could always take to free agency, maybe try and get a guy that in free agency or later rounds, like I said, with Dylan Gabriel, Jalen Milroe. But Will Johnson it's kind of a best player available, and it fits a team needs. So Will Johnson, number 4 to the Giants. And now number 5 to the Jaguars. That leaves the Jaguars thinking, well, there goes our 2 picks, Travis Hunter and Will Johnson. We need a corner. We need a corner bad. Well, obviously, if you look at the corner board, I don't think it's worth taking any of these 4 guys in this top first round. I think Jahdae Barron's could be a first round pick. I think Savone Ravel could be a first round pick. I think Benjamin Morrison could be a first round pick. But you're at pick number 5. You're not going to pick one of those guys who's projected to probably be a late first rounder. So you're going to go and you're going to do what you need to do is get that protection, and they need a guard or a tackle. I'm going to go with Will Campbell because he has the ability to stay at a true tackle this year in the draft, but I also think that he could very easily move to guard with his size and his skill set. He's a very, very impressive player. I saw something today that he was talking about, how the mindset he's had throughout college, and he talked about how his first play was a really bad play. He got almost ran over by I think it was Jared Verse, and he's always talked about how, you give up 1 sack every game, you're working at Amazon, and then, defensive line's a lot different. You're getting 1 sack every game, you're a top 5 pick in the draft. So I really like this dude's mindset. I really like his mentality. I like him as a player. He's just a rugged, great offensive lineman who I think would, basically put his life on the line for every team he plays for. So that's why I really enjoy watching him block at LSU. And he's a really, really good blocker. So he fits two needs for Jacksonville if they put him wherever. So I could see them maybe going Kelvin Banks Jr. because he's got more of the size to him, and we see a lot of Jacksonville's picks be kind of favored towards having bigger size. Guys like Trayvon Walker 2 years ago, who's became actually a really good player for the Jaguars. And then last year, I can't think who is it. Last year, did they take Anton? What? No, I'm thinking of 2 years ago. I think as well. Sorry, Trayvon Walker was I think 3 seasons ago. I'm thinking of Anton Harrison. I think from Oklahoma, who I think they took about 2 years ago in the 2023 draft. Also a pretty big size. So. Don't quote me don't quote me on that if I'm wrong, but I believe that is true. Is Anton Harrison 2 years ago from Oklahoma, who had some pretty good size at tackle. But pick number 6 now for the Panthers. This one, I think this is more of it's a very obvious choice in my opinion. I think it's Abdul Carter. He's best player for this Panthers team and what they need. You could go Tetairoa McMillan because your wide receiver 1 is a 34-year-old Adam Thielen. But I think Abdul Carter is just such a great player that it's hard to pass up on that guy. You do need an edge rush presence, especially because Brian Burns was traded this last draft, and all you got for it was a second-round pick, who you used to trade up to get to Xavier Legette, who hasn't had the brightest rookie season, but he's definitely improving. He's improving. I wouldn't say that he's a bust at all. It's been 1 year. That's the thing. That's the thing I want to say with a lot of players. I see a lot of people labeling Caleb Williams as a bust and Xavier Legette as a bust, and guys like Ricky Pearsall as a bust, who had a fantastic game on Monday night yesterday. Props to Ricky Pearsall, but you should never call a guy a bust after 1 year. Even I've seen things like Terrion Arnold's a bust. Terrion Arnold was a great corner, but he's really handsy. And that's kind of why he gets a lot of penalties in the NFL, because that's not going to fly in the NFL if you're that handsy. It can sometimes work in college, but it's not going to always work in the NFL. So he's got to work on that. But a lot of these players aren't going to be you can't call them busts. It's their first season in the NFL. Not every player is going to come into the NFL and have an impact like a Jaden Daniels is right now. You see 1 or 2 quarterbacks doing that, or 1 or 2 rookies doing that in their rookie season. So I don't like the bust narratives in the first year, except if it's a guy like Jamarcus Russell or something like that. That guy was just terrible. If they're flat out terrible, then yeah, but Caleb Williams is in such a bad spot for a quarterback, so that's why I don't blame him. But number 7, let's get back on track here for the Jets. The Jets are a team that I think they could go a lot of directions. They definitely could use a tight end. You don't know how long Devontae Adams is going to be playing. He's pretty old, so Tetairoa McMillan's an option. But I'm gonna put in Mason Graham. I still think that defensive interior matching with Quinnen Williams would be absolutely amazing. Mason Graham's absolutely fantastic player. He's a great athlete, and he's someone that I think can help make a direct impact for the Jets. And that's, I think, what the Jets need, is a guy that's going to come and make a direct impact. A guy like Will Johnson, I think, could also go to the Jets if he manages to fall to 7. One of those Michigan guys, I think, is the proper choice for them. So that's going to be Mason Graham at 7 to the Jets. Now, at number 8 to the Raiders. The Raiders 2 weeks ago had the number 1 pick in the draft, and it was looking like they were a sure lock. They were a lock. Sherlock No Holmes for Shedeur Sanders at number 1. And then last week, it looked like the Giants were there. And now, all of a sudden, the Raiders have won 2 straight, and now they have the number 8 pick in the draft. And that quarterback need won't be filled, in my opinion. They will have to look into other things. And I think they've got a lot of problems with their team. Their cornerback situation is terrible. Their secondary is pretty bad. I was fortunate enough to go watch them play the Falcons. Maybe more unfortunate because the game was pretty bad, but it was a lot of fun. And the team had a lot of problems. First off, yeah, you have Desmond Ridder at quarterback that game. I don't think Aiden O'Connell's bad at all. I think Aiden O'Connell is a pretty good quarterback. I think he's a starting quarterback for the Raiders, especially if they don't get one this year. I don't think he's been bad at all. I think you just need to help him a little bit more. He doesn't really have weapons right now. He's got Brock Bowers, and Jacoby Myers has been pretty good towards the later end of the half of the season, but you got to get him more weapons. I mean, if Amir Abdullah is his number one target, that's a problem. I mean, Amir Abdullah's 31. He had a great game, I say, against New Orleans, but this is where I go to the running back route. You let go of Josh Jacobs last offseason, and there's a really, really good running back here. I mean, Tedero McMillan, great wide receiver. You could solidify a wide receiver one on this team. Really, 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 really lean towards doing that. But here, I'm going to go with the Ashton Jeanty play. I'm going to give the Raiders Ashton Jeanty, get them a running back that can be in the backfield for Aiden O'Connell. I mean, Ashton Jeanty is a great pass pro running back, in my opinion, as well. And then obviously we can see what he can do on the ground, as he is 132 yards away from breaking the record. Barry Sanders' record that's been standing for 30-something years, almost 40 years probably. Almost 40 years at this point. I mean, he's proven he can be a power back. I mean, yeah, he plays in the Mountain West Conference, but I hate that narrative that he's not good because he plays in the Mountain West Conference, or he doesn't deserve to be credited so high because he plays in the Mountain West Conference. The dude's an absolute stud, and obviously we'll see how he does today against Penn State. But I think that's a great choice for the Raiders, because that game that I went to, you could tell they were struggling so much because their offense had to be so one-sided. I mean, they could not run the ball to save their lives, dude. They couldn't run the ball to save their lives in that game. And then obviously that made it so the Falcons defense could really lock in on the passing game. And with Desmond Ridder at quarterback, that's not really helping you out. So Ashton Jeanty, number 8. We got to get this thing speeded up. We're going to go number 9. I think this is an easy pick. Offensive line is the second cheapest offensive line in the NFL. It is also, in my opinion, the worst. But guess what? You get yourself Kelvin Banks Jr., who I think could arguably be the OT1 in this draft class. I think Kelvin Banks Jr. has the best opportunity of staying at the tackle position between him and Will Campbell. And I think that's just the Bears need to lock down on that. I mean, I'm glad to see they're finally back in their natural habitat in the top 10. Earlier in the year, they were kind of in a little bit of a different spot. But Kelvin Banks Jr., number 9 to Chicago. Rounding off the top 10, though, we're going to have the New Orleans Saints. And I could go multiple ways with the Saints. Their defensive line is terrible. I mean, Cam Jordan's probably going to retire, so Brian Bursi's been really good. Carl Granderson's been pretty decent for them. So I could very easily see them go for a guy like Mykel Williams, Nick Skirton, maybe even jump on a James Pierce Jr. But I think at this point in the draft, you also need interior line, so you could go for a guy like Ish Ursary, but you're at pick 10, and this guy's fell all the way to 10. I think you pick Tedero McMillan. The wide receiver room in New Orleans is 2 guys. It's about 2 guys, and both of them are hurt right now, so the wide receiver room is absolutely demolished. It's terrible. And I think Tedero McMillan, now I do say that I think maybe Luther Burden would be the better fit in New Orleans because he's more of a slot guy, and Shaheed and Olave aren't really that big of slot guys. But I think moving Olave to the slot and having Tedero McMillan as your tall red zone threat guy, and then you have Shaheed for those explosive plays. Maybe even move Rashid Shaheed to the slot, but I like having Shaheed on those deep routes all the time. You don't see that from slot receivers. That's what I'm saying. Chris Olave maybe move to the slot. Getting Tedero McMillan for this team, whoever is going to be the quarterback next year, I really hope they give Spencer Rattler another shot, because I think he's been put in a really bad situation as a rookie quarterback as well, with a very injured team and a very bad team also. Giving a guy like Tedero McMillan to a guy like Spencer Rattler, I think could really help him develop. Do I think Spencer Rattler is the long-term future for the Saints? No, I don't think Derek Carr is the future for the Saints. I don't think Jake Haener. I don't think any of the guys on the team is probably the long-term solution for the team, the long-term solution for the Saints. But I think Spencer Rattler could develop into a pretty decent starting quarterback for him if they can get him more weapons and really just protect him more. But that's why Tedero McMillan comes into play. So, number 11 now to the Niners. Niners currently sitting at 6-10 at pick 11. So I think they need to get an offensive lineman. Even though he's out right now with the injury, Josh Simmons is a fantastic offensive lineman. I think he's going to be a really good offensive lineman in the NFL as well. I do like Ohio State as a program when it comes to NFL players. I think they can really, really produce NFL players. And I think Josh Simmons was a fantastic player at Ohio State before he got hurt. So I don't think the injury should plummet his draft stock that much. I think that honestly he could be, if he didn't get hurt, I think he would very well be in the conversation with Kelvin Banks Jr. and Will Campbell about being the true OT1 in the draft class. But the Niners need maybe some more depth. They need more guys on the O-line, and that's where Josh Simmons comes into play. So now at number 12 to the Colts, I think this one is between Malachi Starks and Tyler Warren. I'm going to go with Tyler Warren. I think Tyler Warren is a perfect Indianapolis Colt. Hey, Indianapolis Colt legend, Dallas Clark, wore 44. Guess who wears 44 at Penn State? Tyler Warren wears 44 at Penn State. He does it all. He does a lot for that Penn State team, and I think they have a good wide receiver core there in Indianapolis. I think getting a tight end on top of that who can even block to add on to that run game with Jonathan Taylor would be beneficial for them. I really do want Anthony Richardson to develop more. He just isn't really looking like it's going to turn out very much. So maybe next year they can get a quarterback, but I'm always rooting for Anthony Richardson. But Tyler Warren is a perfect fit in my opinion for Indianapolis. Now 13 to the Dallas Cowboys. I had them maybe going Malachi Starks here, just because he's that good of a player. But I'm going to have them go. It was between two. It was between Jalen Walker and Kenneth Grant. And the reason why is because I could see them filling out that linebacker role, but I think Jalen Walker is going to be kind of like Micah Parsons. And that's another thing with Abdul Carter, is that's a thing that the Panthers could use him as. We've seen Abdul Carter play the off ball. He used to play the off ball, and now he's moved to full-time edge at Penn State. So that's a thing with Jalen Walker. Obviously, Jalen Walker does that already. He can play off ball. He can play edge rusher. I don't think the Cowboys need that because they need interior D-line. It is the worst interior defensive line in the league. They're going to go with another Michigan interior D-lineman, Kenneth Grant, at 13. The last time you drafted interior D-lineman from Michigan obviously didn't work out for you. Mozzie Smith has been probably one of the worst defensive linemen, I think, in the league. I've never been a fan of him. So I just don't think he's been a great pick for the Cowboys. But Kenneth Grant, I think, is a great player. Once again, I think I said this in Mock Draft 1.0 about Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. Jim Harbaugh once said that they were gifts from the football gods. And Jim Harbaugh he's a pretty good coach. I'll listen to what he says. If he thinks they're gifts from the football gods, I think that they're gifts from the football gods. So I got them going both top 13. Kenneth Grant going to the Cowboys. Now, number 14 to the Cardinals. I think this is a pretty easy pick for me. It is going to be Jalen Walker, linebacker from Georgia. They need a linebacker, and hey, you can use him as an edge rusher too. The Cardinals defense could use that help. And Jalen Walker fits both of them. I don't think could be a guy that moves to full-time edge rusher unless he can get some more weight on him. He is 245, I believe, but the fact that he can play pass coverage backer and off-ball linebacker is something that I think the Cardinals could really benefit off of. 15 now to the Dolphins. I'm finally going to put Malachi Starks off the board. I think he needs to be picked by the Dolphins if he's available, because the Dolphins have all their three major safeties. Their three major safeties are all going to be free agents this offseason. I don't think they're going to retain all three of them. So you need to get a safety in the draft. If Malachi Starks is there, you get him. Maybe you get a guy like, Xavier Watts in the second round. Maybe you get a guy like Kevin Winston or Nick Emenwari, who I really think could possibly be a first-round pick, because Emenwari can play a lot of different positions in the secondary. But Malachi Starks at 15, I think, is great value. It's fantastic value because I think he's a top 10 player in this draft class, and he's landing at 15 to the Dolphins. So, but now at number 16 to the Bengals, We're going to go with our third straight Georgia Bulldog. It's Mykel Williams. His upside, I think, is going to be the best of any of the edge rushers in the draft. I think Abdul Carter doesn't really have that, that boomer bust type of fit to him. I think he's more of a Abdul Carter's already a really, really good player, really polished. Mykel Williams, I'm not saying he's boomer bust, but I think he's going to be more of one of those upside guys, kind of like Trayvon Walker, who we were talking about earlier, who was the number one pick in 2022. And I mean, the thing with Cincinnati is I mean earlier a lot of people were going to go Ashton Jeanty because they didn't know about the running back situation, but I think Chase Brown's looked great. I don't think you should move on from Chase Brown this instantly, or kind of make a committee backfield. The guy's been fantastic. He has the second most all-purpose yards, I believe, since taking the starting role, only behind his teammate Jamar Chase. And then talks came out. T. Higgins says that he might be taking, he might be taking a pay cut, staying in Cincinnati. He's playing with Joe Burrow. He loves playing with him. He loves playing with Jamar. That's a team that you'd love to play for. And if I'm the Bengals, we need to focus on our defense because our defense is terrible. I mean, what was it? They have 4 losses when their offense scores 30 or more points. The rest of the league has 1 or something like that too. If they had a competent defense, semi-competent defense, they'd be one of the best teams in the AFC right now. And that offense is the best offense in the league. So, I mean, Mykel Williams, you get a guy off the edge, which with Trey Hendrickson, I believe, being a free agent this offseason, uncertain to see if he comes back. You pick up Mykel Williams. That's a very, very good move for Cincinnati. Now, 17 to the Falcons. They're the same boat. They need someone off the edge. They just can't get to the quarterback. Nick Skirton from Texas A&M will be our pick here. He's a bigger edge rusher, and I don't really have much to say other than the Falcons need that edge rushing presence. So that's why I gotta go with a guy like Nick Skirton, who I think can be a really good player in the NFL. Matthew Judon is the only really guy I can really name off the top of my head right now. I think I don't think Calais Campbell, I don't think, is on the Falcons anymore. He might be, but I don't know, man. I can't. I'm having a brain fart on that, but yeah, Nick Skirton, 17, and at 18, I think this guy's perfect for Seattle. It's Ariante Ursary. He can move to guard, and he can also play tackle. And the Seahawks, that's what they need. They need a lineman. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. The lineman position is their biggest need this draft. If they could get a linebacker later, I think, but Geno's getting older and older. He's just going to keep getting older. He's not going to stay young. He's not going to get younger. I mean, he's not going to stay young as I say, as he's like 34, but he's just going to keep getting older. So I think you got to focus on getting a guy to protect him. So and to block for Kenneth Walker, and Zach Charbonnet. You got a great running back committee in Seattle. So 19 now to the Houston Texans. I think they go interior, and I think they go Walter Nolan. They have really good players there, but a lot of the defensive interior linemen are going to be on expiring contracts for next year and this season and next season. So this is more of a focusing on the future type of pick. We need to get a guy on our team that can, be here for 5 years, develop for 5 years, see how he plays, and everything like that. So, and that's what Walter Nolan will be. And he's impressed me a ton at Ole Miss. So he might get a scouting profile from us later in the draft process. But moving on to 20 for the Denver Broncos, we're going to go. This was also a great pick for them, a big slide. Luther Burden drops the 20. Matching him, putting him in the slot, matching him with Cortland Sutton, and Marvis Mims has been great. Marvin Mims, not Marvis, Marvin Mims. Giving Bo Nix another weapon is what you want. It's exactly what you want. Your defense has been one of the best defenses in the league, if not the best defense in the league this year. Just keep on beefing up that offense. And Luther Burden, is fantastic when you get him the ball. And I think that's what he'll do in Denver, is he'll be a slot guy that you can get him the ball. Kind of like a Chris Godwin, who comes for the next team, which is Tampa Bay. And with Tampa Bay, I think that it could be corner possibly here, but I'm going to go James Pierce Jr. I think the edge presence could be big. I mean, even though he's on the Dolphins right now, I was thinking about Shaq Barrett, who just unretired, who was on the Buccaneers. Obviously, you don't have him anymore. You need an edge presence. You know, Vita Vea is really good in the interior, but let's get your team in edge presence, and that's where James Pierce Jr. comes into play. And he's just a phenomenal player. I mean, if you look at his grades, I mean, this 22.7 pass rush win rate is unbelievable. So I think that's somebody that you got to put into account that really, really, really should be even higher than 21. I think could be picked in the teens. He's fantastic. I think it's a really, really, really high value pick for Tampa Bay at 21. Now for the Chargers at 22, I originally had Kenneth Grant falling all the way to 22 and them taking Kenneth Grant, but I'm going to go Colston Loveland from Michigan. Harbaugh gets one of his Michigan boys. Loveland, I think, is more of a big receiver than a true tight end, a very good receiving tight end. And I think Herbert, getting another weapon for that dude, Ladd McConkey's been fantastic. You know, Quentin Johnston still has the catch problems, but from a wider point of view, like a wider standpoint, a broader point of view, he really has improved this year, touchdown-wise especially. But, I mean, Will Dissly ain't just always going to cut it. Colston Loveland at tight end, you know, he can also block too, but I see him more as a receiving tight end than a blocking tight end, a guy like Tyler Warren, who I think is a great blocker. So we're going to go Colston Loveland 22 to the Chargers to reunite him and Harbaugh. 23 now to the Rams. This is where another corner goes off the board. The second one, Benjamin Morrison. The Rams need corner help. Their corner room is not good. It's not deep. And Benjamin Morrison was really good until he got hurt. He's a great player. So, he's a perfect fit for the Rams. We're going to go now with 24 to the Packers. We're going to go with a tackle here. We're going to go with Cameron Williams, who really is an absolute physical demon. He is huge. And he might be a little bit developmental as a tackle, more developmental than the others. But last year you drafted Jordan Morgan, tackle out of Arizona, who you moved to guard. I don't think he's really cut it as great as you thought he would. But you really could get a true tackle in a guy like Cameron Williams, and that'd be pretty good for the Packers. To just protect Jordan Love and keep blocking for Josh Jacobs, who's been a fantastic free agent pickup for him. 25 now. For the Steelers, we're going to go with Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. He's a great wide receiver. I love watching him play, man. He's going to be a do-it-all guy for you. I think Pittsburgh really needs another receiver with George Pickens because, you know, George Pickens isn't always doing all of it, but when you have Calvin Austin as your best other option other than that, like, you need to improve that wide receiver room, and Emeka Egbuka does just that. So, 26 now to the Commanders. I went either edge or corner here. This time, we're going to go edge. We're going to go with LT Overton. He's been one of the guys that's really been a draft riser because of his season. He's had a very impressive season compared to the last two. If you look at the trends, too. I mean, this is from, the beginning of November, so he's kind of stayed about the same, and then kind of narrowed into the later first round. I think LT Overton has been a really good player for Alabama, and Washington really could use help on the edge presence. They've had a really big year from, Dante Fowler, I believe, has had a fantastic year for them. They picked up some really good guys in the offseason, but getting a young guy like LT Overton is beneficial. So, I mean, that's a lot of these things with these later first-round picks is guys, that can help and develop, and, you get them to a 5-year contract. They're going to be there either best play available or what you need. So we're going to go to the next pick, though. Wyatt Milum from West Virginia can play tackle or guard. And guess what? The Ravens need a tackle or a guard. I was thinking about the Dolphins because the Dolphins also need a tackle or a guard. He's Wyatt Milum can play both sides. He's been both tackle guard. He's been a starter for a long time at West Virginia. He doesn't really fully remind me of Zach Frazier, who's been one of the better rookie offensive linemen this year. This for the Steelers, I believe it is. He's on the Steelers, right? Yeah, I think so. I think obviously he goes to West Virginia, so it's like it makes me think of Zach Frazier. In no way am I comparing them as the exact same player, but I think that Milam can be one of those late first round guys that I thought Zach Frazier would really be, and be a very good offensive lineman for you, and kind of make a good impact off rip in the beginning. So now at 28 to the Eagles, we're gonna go with edge rusher here. But I'm actually going to go down the board here to Mike Green. Mike Green has been fantastic at Marshall this year. And I don't want anybody to think, oh, well, he's at Marshall, blah, blah, blah. He's not playing the greatest teams. Yeah, it's a Sun Belt team. The dude's got 17 sacks, man. The dude's got 17 sacks. 20% pass rush win rate. Gosh, that is a tongue twister for me. This dude's fantastic, man. This dude is a great edge rusher. He's going to cause some damage. He's going to be a very big sleeper. I think he should be towards the later end of the first round. I think he could very easily be a day 2 guy. And the Eagles do it again, I think. I think the Eagles get another gem in the late first round, this time with Mike Green. So now 29 to the Bills. I think we did this last mock draft. We're going to go with Derek Harmon, who I still think is very lowly rated on PFF. I think he's going to end up being a first round pick. He's been a great, piece for that Oregon defense, who's been really, really good. They didn't really do great against Penn State rushing wise, but he's been able to stuff the middle for Oregon. So he's been great to watch. I think he should be a first round pick, and he will fit with Buffalo. Now Detroit at pick 30. I was thinking of going 2 different players. It was either Shamar Stewart or Landon Jackson. We're going to go Shamar Stewart. I do think Landon Jackson could probably later on be a first-round pick to the Lions. I'm going to go Shamar Stewart because I still think he's a first-round guy. And I think the Lions absolutely need to find a solution on the other side of the line for when Aiden Hutchinson's back. Their defense has been dealing with a lot of injuries. Their defense hasn't been up to the standard that they've been most of the season because of a lot of the injuries, but their defense has still been pretty good. Obviously, they sit at 14-2. So, and they're playing the team that we're going for next, which is Minnesota, who have done Caleb Johnson last time. I really think Caleb Johnson could still be the pick, but I'm gonna go Omarion Hampton. This time, Omarion Hampton, after watching more North Carolina film and just watching more of their games, I think Omarion Hampton is absolutely fantastic, man. Oh my goodness. Something about those North Carolina backs, they've been able to make some consistently reliable backs in the NFL. Javonte Williams, Michael Carter were 2 really good guys. I don't think Carter got as much of a opportunity as Javonte. I think Javonte's been pretty reliable at some times for the Broncos, but I think Omarion Hampton's on a whole nother level. So, a team that needs a running back, expiring contract for Aaron Jones, Omarion Hampton, you get a guy for 5 years, and that's why you take him if you have that late of a pick. And then finally, to wrap up the first round, we go Tyleik Williams. This is a great value pick for the Chiefs, getting a guy like Tyleik Williams at the end of the first round of the 2025 draft, when Chris Jones just keeps getting older. So there you have it. This is my first round mock. 2 Colorado guys off the top 2 again. This has been Mock Draft 3.0. Let me know what you think about what your team did. If you like the pick, if you don't like the pick, what do you want to see from your team come draft time? And obviously, the draft order will still change. So we will be going and creating new ones as time goes on. But that's going to be it for us today. And hope y'all enjoyed. We'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.